Hey everybody in the reggae universe, welcome to a conversation in dub hosted by me, Mark Ramondi.
And me, James Pasqua. This podcast is all about exploring the massive world of reggae and dub music, from its roots in Jamaica to its influence on various music genres worldwide.
This podcast also explores the intricacies of dub through insightful conversations, interviews with artists, and in-depth analysis of iconic tracks. We don't just talk about the music, but also the stories behind it, the techniques used in its production, and the social and political context that shaped its development.
Our goal is to promote mindful listening, taking you, the listener, on the journey the artist intended. Through this process, we hope to introduce you to new music or give you a new insight on music you already know and love.
This podcast is brought to you by Rootfire, a platform for reggae music worldwide with a mission to empower artists and nurture the community that supports them. You're here because you love reggae music and want to be a part of that community. We're here to help connect the dots.
If you have any feedback for us, be sure to email us at aconversationindub@gmail.com or message us on Facebook or Instagram at aconversationindub. We love hearing from you. Now,
let's get to the show. Okay, everybody out there. So we are just going to insert this into this episode because truth of it is, we finished recording this episode already and we came to a crazy conclusion. Do you want to share that?
We already reviewed this song that we're going to review in this episode. But what's most interesting is we've done so many of these episodes and so many amazing songs on this podcast that we just forgot. And
yeah, straight up forgot.
We, listened to this song recently and said, let's do this song. It's really good. So go into this episode like we did, pretend we've never talked about it, and we're going to treat it like a new episode. So we hope you enjoy this.
I mean, guys, this is a new episode. Like, when I tell you we both went for the ride, we got re-lost in this track. We couldn't even make it through the recording without discussing it, stopping it, and going to listen to the dub as if this was the first analysis of us talking together and listening to it, which, again, shows the power of this awesome music. But, guys, keep an open mind. And if you heard our first analysis of this
2 years ago,
compare it to our second one 2 years ago. Yeah. And then go compare, contrast. And honestly, if it's been 2 years since you guys heard this track, you're welcome, because it's an amazing track and it's time to revisit these things that are amazing. And you know what? Back before we did this first episode, we weren't associated with Rootfire, which is amazing now because thanks to Rootfire, we've been able to gain a little bit more of a following. So hopefully this episode is able to reach more of you so you all can enjoy it as much as we have twice. So yeah, sorry for this. We'll get you guys back to the episode. So go ahead and enjoy.
Yeah, enjoy the episode.
Well, hello there, bro. How you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing pretty fantastic. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, believe it or not. We got a nice little break coming up. It's our winter break from teaching, so I got some downtime, which is wonderful, heading down to South Carolina to finalize some wedding stuff this week.
Oh, yeah, you are.
Oh, yeah. Excited, man. That's why I need some dub to just kind of get me into that zone. I got a long drive coming up, and I'm hoping, well, I know for a fact that this episode is going to rejuvenate some things I'm going to be putting on that playlist on the way down.
I'm sure it will. On some personal news, though, I announced my new song is dropping March 4th.
Woo, man. So tell us, man. Tell us about this track. What are we going to expect?
It's my new single, produced by me. I did most of the instrumentation except for the horn lines done by the Stepadelic horn section. Those guys kill it every time. Super pro.
Absolutely.
And I had a guest, a vocalist on it, Nick Barker from the band 12 Foot Ninja.
It's amazing, man.
He just took that song and new limits to that song that I did not see coming. And it was mixed by Josh Driscoll, who does all the Dub Apocalypse and Organically Good Trio stuff. He's just amazing. He made the mix sound beautiful. Seriously.
Yeah.
I listened to it over and over, and I'm like, I cannot believe that this is real. So I'm super excited to put that out, and everyone go pre-save it so it gets added to your library automatically. It'll be out March 4th. coming up.
Yes, guys, that's awesome. And I can attest, it is a fantastic track. I'm so excited for this to be out there in the world, and I can't wait for us to feature it on an episode of A Conversation in Dub, where we can take a little deep dive on these tracks, and we get Nick over here to have a nice conversation as well to discuss that process for him. So that's all good things to look forward to this year.
Oh, I love it. I love it. More to
Awesome,
come.
man.
More to come.
Yeah, congratulations, bro.
Hey,
We're all
thanks.
excited for you. I think it's going to be a wonderful thing for us, wonderful thing for Root Fire, and a wonderful thing for you. So this is going to be a great thing to get that out there and get this pumping in the world, because it is phenomenal.
Music's good for everyone, so
That's right.
let's
man.
just get it
That's
out there.
right. So speaking of getting it out there, where are we going today? Talk to me.
Oh, we're going back in time. Back in
Oh, I
time.
love that.
You saw a familiar band name on the title. Of course, that is UB40. But we're not talking about Red Red Wine. We're not talking about all the covers. We're not talking about the digital era. We're going back. We're going to 1981, their second album. It is the Present Arms album.
It is.
It is amazing.
Mhm.
Top to bottom. Just
Agreed.
unbelievable. There's an accompanying dub album as well, Present Arms and Dub. Equally amazing. If
Yep.
you're not familiar with these albums, get used to it, because we're diving in. We're going to be listening to 1 in 10, which is one of their bigger hits, and it is on their greatest hits album. You just may not have realized that it's from a different era of UB40 before they started doing the UB40 thing.
Yeah, and I think it's great that we're taking a look at UB40, definitely like a perspective of what people's idea of them really isn't. So like when we say UB40, if your guys' minds go right to Red Red Wine, stuff like that, I think you're really going to be surprised and intrigued by this track. So are you ready, man?
I'm ready. Let's do it. I love this track. This is 1 in
Good.
10, UB40, 1981. You can find this song on any streaming platform. You could find it on YouTube. If you have the album, put it on, listen to the whole album if you want, and then come back to us. It'll be a wild ride. But here we go. Here's 1 in 10. Welcome back.
Hi, everybody.
What'd you think of that? We already started talking about. We finished the song so long ago, and already started talking.
I'm not gonna lie, we probably finished the episode a while ago too, but we just never got.
I had to
back
cut
it.
Mark off. I was like, let's get this in the episode. So that was 1 in 10.
Oh my god.
UB40, 1981. We also previewed the dub version a little bit. That's on Present Arms and Dub. Same year.
Yeah.
You can find it in the same place you found the original one.
Oh.
What do you got to say about this one?
I don't even know where to start. I
I
even
know.
know where to start. I mean, I feel like we have to start with the fact that, like, I think one of the things that I said to you while this was playing, I was like, yeah, show me what you can do with 2 chords. And it's like, this is just like, there's such unique instrumentalization in this track
Yeah.
that makes it so good. But like, where do you start? Do we start bass line? Do we start the brutality of that steady bass line and
Bass
the
line.
variations that happen within that bass line that just punch you in the chest and it keeps you moving throughout the entire track?
8-bar phrasing, right?
Yep.
That's what you
8-bar
call that?
phrasing.
Because
Yep.
the first half of the bar is the same, and then the second one is different every time for every
And
every
this
measure
may
or
not be
whatever.
the correct term too, but like there's a very big like question answer phrasing going on with that bass where it's just setting it up for a response. It's responsive to itself. It's creating depth. And I feel like the bass line in this track is creating a storyline that you follow throughout the entire piece. And just like a story, there's parts that are similar, but so many parts that are different to tie it together to make it interesting. But like, that's what I get with this. There's just incredible phrasing going on in terms of the bass.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with what we're talking about, pause and listen to the just the introduction of the dub version, and you'll hear exactly what we're talking about.
Yep.
The song doesn't even need a lead part, it has the bass line to do that for you, and it keeps it interesting.
Yes.
That's what we're
Yes.
talking about.
Yes. And then there's lead parts, which is crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love the lead parts. I
love the lead parts.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, but like, it's just how so much can be happening and have it still seem so open and not cluttered and organized is reggae orchestration at its finest. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it doesn't feel cluttered at all.
No, not even a moment of it.
And it's so refreshing to hear UB40 with real drums, especially
Yes.
the 1981 super dry Jamaican sounding drums. Obviously, UB40 is not from Jamaica. They are from the UK. But obviously, they were going for that sound, and they nailed it.
Nailed
and I
it.
feel like they really helped set the precedent of UK reggae. They were
Yes.
they were among them to do that.
Yeah.
And man, it sounds. And if you listen to other UK reggae of the time, I mean, it really sounds like that. You know, like if you go back
It's
and listen
true.
to early Oswald stuff or early Steel Pulse stuff, I mean, it's like, oh yeah, they were all doing that.
Yep. And like, I understand, like, I know that UB40 eventually grew away from this sound, but to be able to sit in this sound and to have this is such a gem, you know, like, but you can tell the instrumentalization in this that kind of caught me to kind of where you can see the direction they're going to go into, believe it or not, is like the keyboard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The keys track really kind of shows like, okay, there's a little bit of a shift in difference in sound that we're heading towards and going towards and leaning into. And this track, I absolutely love it. I love. We were just talking about the chucks that are happening with the key, the like little keyboard part, like that synth, whatever it is, just doing one note for a chuck, which is so interesting. And also just doing this descending line, not necessarily a scale, but just like this descending line that's happening throughout it in the background. It's really inventive. It's not something you even hear like nowadays. Like, it's so unique.
Yeah. And we talked about them going digital in the next album even. I mean,
Yeah.
it's 1981, and in Jamaica, I mean, that was like peak Channel 1 days. You know, it was like everything's getting super clear recordings. Everything is like top of the line now.
Yeah.
And then Jamaica then went digital shortly after that. I mean, if you follow like Black Uhuru, it was already there.
Yep.
And then they just followed. And then UB40 at the time probably said, you know what? Let's just follow through and do that. And they just stayed there.
True. But also, I feel like UB40 is one of those bands that's very influential in bringing fans from other genres to understand and be introduced and see reggae. You know?
Yes.
Like, their place in history is huge, I feel like, and their contribution to reggae as a whole is huge. But I think it's just so interesting to see where they started versus the direction that they're recognized as. You know? Like, it's very, very cool.
Definitely. Lead guitar, killer.
The tone
Killer.
of that guitar is so crispy.
Just like shreddy, but not shredding, but you know, that tone.
But just, oh, it just hits. I love it. I absolutely love it.
That's what
I
you
think
get
that
when you blend the rootsy Jamaican reggae sound with the UK punk revolution that was also happening, and you get this, and it's just a perfect blend, as it always was.
It is. And honestly, the rest of the tracks on this album absolutely slap. Like, they are all fantastic.
These are the albums that I get lost in. It's UB40's Present Arms and Signing Off. I could just put on and you get lost in like a trance, and you're like, oh, love this.
Yeah, and what was wild is like even that one track, just like listening to it, I didn't want it to end. And then when you and I got into the dub a little bit, just to kind of like, just to hear it and experiment with it, it's like, oh, it's like another world, man. But this is such a special and unique track. And I really hope that, like, for a lot of you people out there who know UB40 and might not be familiar with this, I hope this was like the first time you got to hear something like that from UB40. And I hope that kind of changes a little bit of like almost the perspective on what they did, what they've changed into, what they've contributed. But also, I hope this gets you guys to go back into the vault and do some listening. Like, please, if you like this, you will love this album. I can absolutely say that 100%.
Yeah, and we're not downplaying any of the digital UB40 stuff. I mean, it's great stuff. Obviously, they
Great
made
stuff.
it huge, and they're catchy songs. You still hear them
It's
today,
what got them on the map.
definitely. But it's just it's almost like it's a different band to listen to. So yeah, like Mark said, if you're not as familiar with this stuff, oh man, there's a lot of it. In
Yeah.
those two albums alone, there's a lot of it.
It's true. It's very true. And like that, yeah, you're absolutely right. Not to knock any of the digital stuff. I mean, like that is a real awesome thing for a band to grow with the times and embrace the times, which is one of the reasons why I think they were as well known as they are. Is they rode the wave. You know what I mean? And I
Definitely.
think that's really intuitive from just a passion standpoint and just a progression standpoint. It's really wonderful. And I think that it's good to bridge these gaps too, because for some people that digital sound might not be the preference, but the digital sound for them was so good because look at where it came from. Look at what they were backed behind and the homework that was done on the back end of things before they changed the game. It's this reminds me of a Picasso quote that I tell my kids all the time that I've probably mentioned on this podcast before, which is you have to learn the rules like a pro before you can break them like an artist.
Hmm.
And this is kind of proof that that's exactly what UB40 did.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? They took exactly what it was supposed to, the original intent behind every ounce of what reggae is, and then they turned it and changed it into something that was a different kind of masterful art because they understood what they were doing enough to make it so. And that is pretty awesome.
That is awesome. And it definitely sounds like what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because at
And
the
I
root
mean,
of it, it's that Jamaican reggae sound.
Yes. Yes, at the root of it, it's about what inspired them and what they were able to grow from. I mean, you can't innovate without being inspired. And I think that this is kind of a way for us to have a glance at that path of inspiration for such an iconic band that they took to kind of get the sound that we all know them as. But what an amazing track and what an amazing dub.
And also, it's not to make it about race at all, but we all know most of UB40 is white. They're from the UK. And I wonder how that was perceived in 1979, 1981, as these guys were playing this super rootsy, dubby stuff. Like, was it like this is appropriation straight up, or was it like these guys really did their homework and they get it?
It's true.
We weren't there. We can never be there. I just wonder how that was perceived by that community at that time in that location.
I agree.
Because we all know there was very heavily Jamaican in the UK at that time.
Absolutely.
And they were doing the Jamaican thing.
Yeah.
But then these white guys come along and do this.
Exactly.
But they do it really well. Looking back, they do it really well. But at the time, was it like, this is not good? Or was it, this is awesome?
Yeah, I would love
novelty?
to have that conversation. Yeah, I would love to kind of see and be like, what that was like to be able to make those decisions to go this route, stick this route, and what kind of hurdles you had to jump at this time to be able to make music like this so passionately and confidently. It's crazy that in life there are drawbacks and things like this that even exist, and hurdles and things that people have to push past their own perspective to like really understand and experience. But I think the cool thing is how music has the ability to transcend all those things. You know what I mean? I mean, good music's good music, and the vibe is the vibe, and also the intention is the intention, and that's the one thing that I think you can tell by going back and listening to some old stuff from UB40 is understanding their intention and their progression. I think it's how you get an idea of the whole story, not just a stamp in time, which in my opinion tells so much more about the characteristics of these musicians, their skill levels, and their inspirations than anything could. So and that's all up to the perspective of the listener and when they listen to it and how they perceive it in that moment, which is why I think it's important that this is a great opportunity for people who don't really have the full picture of UB40 and understand all of that to kind of go and look into and see to understand, because that's really the only way we can ever understand anything. And what a beautiful picture this paints.
And they obviously had to have done their homework, because in 1978, when they started the band, you couldn't go on Instagram and see what was happening around the world. You couldn't stream any music you wanted. You had to go and dig. You had to find what you liked. You had to study it, look at the cover, who played on this, who played on that,
right.
how did they produce this? Let's figure it out ourselves. And it sounds like they did that.
Yeah, I mean, times were so different back then. That's why I would love to have anybody from UB40 on to have a conversation of like, what was the process like?
That
To
would
be
be crazy.
inspired, to find a bunch of people on that level and in that skill set and in that world to be on that same page, especially with the changes that were made, especially with the differences they were making. I feel like, to have bands survive a shift in sound must be one of the craziest and difficult things for a band to do. When you come together and have one sound and you collectively change to make another sound, like, oh my God. Like, I don't think people understand out there how close to a dysfunctional family a band truly is. Especially the more people in it trying to make decisions and make moves and do this, that, and the other thing. It's like, man, like talk about people with a vision and a directive and a path that they did together to make this iconic sound. That story intrigues me, and I would love to hear what that process would like. What were the decisions like, and especially when they were taking the chances to do that and not knowing if it was going to be responsive to people as well, and seeing and doing and passionately following through. It's such an amazing story that you can hear through the music, but to be able to hear the actual process and the behind the scene things would be a totally different world.
Well, I know what I'm going to be listening to for the rest of the day.
Yep, this is basically the tracks we're listening to on the way down to South Carolina. So thank you for that, my friend.
Nice. Don't fall asleep listening to it and get in a trance and crash your car.
Oh
please.
no, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Because sometimes
okay.
I put on these albums and I'm like, whoa, this is so good.
It's true. It is true. I'll save that for when Kat does her portion of the drive. We'll see.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that works.
But no, this was fantastic, guys. I hope you all enjoyed this out there as much as we did. And definitely do your homework. Go back. Check out some old UB40 stuff. Check out some new UB40 stuff. It's all good.
It's all good. And hey, pre-save my new song. Comes out March 4th. Cosmic Soul.
That's what's up. It's going to take you to space, guys. It's a wonderful track. So I cannot wait to check that out. So, bro. Yeah.
As always.
Oh, yeah.
Keep dubbing. Thanks for listening to A Conversation in Dub, hosted by James Pasqua and Mark Raimondi. Conversation in Dub is brought to you by Rootfire, a platform for reggae music worldwide with a mission to empower artists and nurture the community that supports them. You're here because you love reggae music and want to be a part of that community? We're here to help you connect the dots.
This show is produced and edited by James Pasqua. Our theme music is an original composition called Keep Dubbin' by James Pasqua and Mark Raimondi. If you want to hear previous episodes containing full songs, you can find them all on Spotify. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at A Conversation in Dub. And if you have any feedback, requests, or just want to talk about music, reach out there or email us at aconversationindub@gmail.com. Make sure to rate us on your podcast platform of choice. And as always, keep dubbing.